Hey, welcome to the Stephen T. Veach Show, COPING-20, formerly Coping with COVID, the only Facebook and YouTube show where in about 20 minutes, we're going to figure out how together we're going to be as present and as positive as possible during COVID times and work towards a brighter tomorrow. Now, today, the first thing I want to say, this is a Friday for many people in Illinois. Now, before I say what's going on today, what starts Friday, this actually was announced Tuesday, okay? Several counties, we got DuPage, Kane, Will, Kankakee in regions 7 and 8 with phase 3 level mitigations in effect starting today. The reclosure of indoor dining and bars at this time when the weather is getting less and less favorable for outside dining. Many restaurants, for better or for worse, have decided to, in essence, protest this and openly defy the orders. And when I say openly defy, well, that's because they have to let people know they're still open, but then they're putting in writing their intent to not follow the executive order. So I'm not going to get into that too much on this episode. I do plan to do another episode on that specifically. But what I will say is it is a high-risk action, and I'm a very by-the-book person, and it should go without saying I support restaurants. That's one of the main things we talk about on this show, but I'm very by the rules, and I can't advocate breaking the rules, especially when you're taking a huge risk and a huge gamble financially. You might be able to squeeze out a couple more weeks of profit for the people that are still willing to come, right? But what happens if you get your license, your liquor license suspended, you get closed down by the health department completely, and then you can't even do curbside, which at least that would have been 20% of your profits. And I think for restaurants right now, if you have an outdoor dining setup, or even if you don't, I was just talking to a restaurant, okay, that they're going to put up a tent now, and I commend them for that. Put up a tent, open on one, ideally 2 sides, follow the regulations, put heaters in. If you really advertise that experience, that's what most people come for. It's actually not just about the food, and that's fact. People want to come to be taken care of. So I still think there's stuff that can be done with outside dining. I think there's stuff that can be done to expand curbside, to go. We can get creative. You can look into ghost kitchens. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. I'm very excited for it. We're going to keep it really positive, but that's just something you want to think about. You want to think about your whole business as a whole and what assets you have, and reach out to me and we'll put you on the show. And I think that's a good solution going forward. And that ties into what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the finances a little bit with small businesses that go behind these decisions, but also for you people at home. This is going to be an episode that you're really probably looking forward to, something that we would talk about in the show for a long time, which is finances during a pandemic, money during a pandemic. And joining me today is financial coach and advisor, Mr. Ryan Freer. Okay. And I'm going to let him tell us about himself and what he does, because this is really powerful. Okay. He's going to explain to you why now it's probably more important than ever. Okay. To make sure you have a good, solid financial plan. So Ryan, go ahead and fire away and tell everybody what you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So I am a personal finance coach. So I have a background in kind of economics. Never really saw myself getting into finance, too much until about a few years ago. I knew I kind of, I wanted to do something to start a retirement plan. And I met this company, an agent from this company called Five Rings Financial. And Five Rings Financial was started kind of on the basis of, there's an education problem in this country. You and I went to high school together. A lot of us go to school for 16 to 20 years. Myself, I ended up getting a master's degree in economics. We learn a lot about how to make money, how to get a job, but we don't learn how to make money work for us. So we have an education system that doesn't provide a whole lot of education on finance, investing, the stock market, that kind of stuff. And then we're expected to get a job, and then put your money in the finance system, maybe get a 401k, and then best of luck to you. You buy some stocks, and maybe in 40, 50 years, you'll have enough money to retire. And so we don't have a finance system that provides a whole lot of education. So Five Rings Financial has kind of started to sort of bridge that gap. And we really try to reach people really just through an education, mission-driven kind of way. And so, from my experience, a lot of financial sort of professionals, advisors, they will lead with education, but really they do the work for you and really come out on the other end of the side, not really knowing how money works, what is compound interest, what is the rule of 72, and all this other stuff. So my way of, when I work with my clients, I get them involved with their own finances because that's how it worked for me. I knew I needed to do something to start saving for retirement, even if it was, $100 a month. So I started on a small plan like that. And once I started doing that, other pieces of sort of my financial life started to sort of to fall into place. I started to get serious about, what is the credit score? What is a good budget? What does it mean to budget to zero? All this other kind of stuff that I didn't really learn in school. I wish I would have. So I'm kind of going back and really trying to reach people to kind of give them that education as they kind of get older. And because a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm too young. I'll worry about that when I'm, in 10, 20 years or so. But Five Rings Financial, again, found that a lot of people, let's say they're, middle America, middle age, middle income, 45, 50 years old, let's say, about to retire in 15 or 20 years. And then they haven't given serious thoughts to retirement, So you put it off and then you forget about it. And then 20, 30 years goes by. And then suddenly you have a plan for retirement. So getting that started sooner than later is a really good, it's just, the sooner you can start, the better. And that kind of starts to sound like parent advice. You don't know it till you need it. But the way we kind of go about it is as a really fresh perspective. So if you go to Edward Jones, Schwab, Merrill Lynch, you get yourself a financial advisor. They'll give you some mutual funds, 401k plan, put your money in stocks. We see the stock market open up, the front page, Wall Street Journal, you see this, volatility. I do what's called safe money strategies. It's ways to put your money, ways to save your money in ways that doesn't put it directly into the market. And in fact, you can capture most of the upside potential of the market. So when it goes up, capture those gains. If the market goes down, you actually won't lose anything. So I can get into that later if the conversation goes that way. But that was how I got involved in finance. I didn't even know that these things called indexed accounts were real. I thought it was some made up thing. I did a lot of research into it to make sure it's a legitimate thing, and it really is. But once I started doing that, sort of these low risk ways of getting involved in financing and investing, once you build that foundation, and then as you get older, you can start getting into riskier plans, buying stocks and things. The general conventional wisdom is like, oh, when you're young, just put all your money, to the risky investments, real estate, stocks, really aggressive strategies, because you're going to lose it, but you have enough time, over the course of your lifespan to kind of make up for those losses. And I asked the question, well, what if we didn't have to lose anything at all? What if we didn't have to make up for those losses? People who in 2008 financial crash saw the 401k become a 201k, as we kind of joke, kind of at Five Rings. And then a lot of people didn't see those gains come back until about 6 or 8 years after 2008. So what if you didn't have to, wait for the market to bounce back? What if you could just kind of flatline, and then go up when the market goes up? And so I am involved sort of these safe money strategies. And that's kind of how I help kind of my clients. And there's ways to help small business owners too, which I'm happy to kind of talk more about. But that is kind of what I do and how I'm different from most financial professionals you might talk to.
That's interesting, Ryan. You brought up a lot of good points that I'm going to have you go into. But it sounds like what you're saying. Yeah, it sounds like what your approach is. My interpretation of it is like a targeted, strategic, optimized, low risk, high yield strategy. That sounds like
high yield. Yeah.
Yes. And so, go ahead.
No, I was only going to say, so these plans, we talked about, capturing the upside of the market with none of the downside risk. Mm-hmm. Your only risk is getting 0%, but on that comment of high yields, these accounts that can have upwards of 8, 10, 12% caps on those. So when the market goes up, you can capture as much as 8%, return on this per year. And there's a lot of kind of technical speak that goes into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let me ask you, what is your opinion on somebody what can really go wrong, right? The number one mistake that people might make with the more traditional mainstream, if you will, advice. I don't know if that's the right word, but what's really the main thing that you think can go wrong compared to what you're doing?
So I think what can go wrong is people who just take the advice that they got from their parents, because that was certainly the case for me. When I got my first, job, it was part-time at Home Depot. I got a few paychecks. My parents said, "Oh, just go put that money in the bank, buy a couple, savings bonds, 3%, yield on those. Go put them in the bank so they get more money." Um, Fast forward a couple of years, "Oh, get a financial advisor. They'll take care of it for you." I didn't really learn anything. I didn't learn what other options are. And I think people have the mistake of going right into it, from their advice of their parents. And by doing that, people don't know what they don't know. They don't know the options available to them. And so I think that's what's so different about kind of the work that I do is when I sit down with people, I say like, let's see where you're at. Let's see where you want to go. Because I'll ask people like, what would it look like if it were easy? Where do you want to end up in 40 years? And they'll say, they kind of have, map out those goals and those plans. And I say, well, how do you think, taxes or inflation or loss in your investments, how do you think that would affect you? And people will say like, oh, I don't know. Like they'll kind of try to answer it, but I don't think they've given enough thought about how to actually like protect from those kinds of things. The other thing I think that can go wrong is, a lot of people I talk to nowadays. So I'm in my late 20s, about to go into my 30s, and people who are, maybe just come out of college saying, "Oh, I just don't have enough money. I don't make enough money. I'll come back to this in 5 years." That 5 years with compound interest of up to 8%, that you could be missing out, tens of thousands of dollars by doing that. You don't have to start with, $200, $300, $400, $500, on a retirement plan each month. Do that in, later in your career when you earn more money. Maybe start with $50 a month. One way we break it down for people is like, $1 to $5 a day. Could you do that? Oh yeah, I think I could do that. That's the price of a cup of a coffee. People get daily Starbucks. Well, what if you could, take that dollar a day, put it into a plan, let's say that comes out to, 30 to $100 a month. Let's actually budget for that. And I'm not going to force you to put in money that you don't have, which is what I think a lot of financial advisors will do. They'll say, "Oh, you're here. You want to be here in 40 years. So you're going to have to put in, $200 a month if you want to get there." Well, I don't have that kind of money. It's like, well, if you want to get, so you're kind of forced into it. So I work with people with their own budgets and I help people, kind of figure out what those budgets are. Say like, "Oh, if you can afford $50 a month, yeah, I think I could do that." Suddenly it seems a lot more realistic. And I think if people realize they don't have to choose between now and today, how can we kind of combine those two, get the best of both worlds, do now or today, and kind of really work in that and get creative with how you structure your savings plans.
Absolutely. So let me get your thoughts on, so there's people that do stock market investment in a traditional sense, daily stock trading, but then there's people that will do something like, long term. Sometimes they refer to as like the kind that you set and forget. You put in a little bit every month, like VU, Vanguard ETF, S&P 500. What are your thoughts on those kind of investments?
I'm actually really glad you mentioned that or else I might have forgotten to. So like any plan, so with what I do, like we say, it's not the end all be all. Index strategies are only one strategy you should have in your financial plan because it's a nice low risk kind of baseline foundation. If you're building a house, you need a foundation. And I think a lot of people, again, kind of come into those first jobs or start thinking like, "Oh, I'm 20, 30 something, I have to start saving. Let me just go buy a handful of stocks that I like because that's what I've been told to do." Well, let's start with a foundation that's actually low risk and build on that in case all the other pillars fall. At least you can rely on this nest egg. And so once you kind of get comfortable with that foundation, then maybe as you kind of grow and mature in your career, you kind of get some more income the next few years. Then you can maybe start getting into things like stocks or, those riskier kind of, Vanguards, like you mentioned, those ETFs. So in my own plan, I have some indexed accounts. I have that. I have my own 401k through Edward Jones. I do kind of stocks kind of on the side with just a few companies I know, like, and trust, the only advice that I will give from a personal opinion, I can't, not licensed to say it's from a professional opinion. From my personal opinion, I think when you're choosing stocks, find companies you like, know, and trust. Who are the companies that you are already kind of, putting money towards, spending money at. Maybe you really like, Toyotas for your vehicles, or Ford, I like this company. I know it. I'm going to buy out. I'm literally going to take stock in them. That's kind of where that term comes from. Whatever industry you're working in, computers. So when you do that, stocks are kind of a long-term, kind of a set it and forget it action kind of thing. Put a couple $100 or however much you can afford, set it and forget it. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but over the long term, you'll gain. And so that way you're not at risk of becoming a day trader, because you're not trading with companies or putting your faith or money in companies you don't like, know, or trust. And that could be Vanguards, that could be your ETFs, that kind of thing. So again, that's my personal opinion on that. But yeah,
Excellent.
definitely want to diversify. Yeah.
Diversify. I like that.
Yeah.
Diversify is a really good strategy for more things than not in more, in life. Let me ask you, as a teacher myself, of a high school teacher, I've taught a career exploration class. I've taught adult living type classes, and I teach every day personal growth and development, and I dedicate Wednesday. I call it Wraparound Wednesday, and it's transition day, and a lot of what you're talking about it is material that can and should fit in there. And what do you think are some of the most important, crucial things that should be added to, something like what we took in high school, consumer management, consumer ed, whatever they want to call it? What are some of the most crucial things you think should be added to that maybe are probably omitted at this point?
Yeah. Gosh, so much has changed when we were in high school. We talk about not having a financial education, but I kind of put an asterisk by that and say, well, I took one class, and they taught us how to fill out a W-2 using a pen and paper, how to balance a checkbook with pen and paper. I mean, so much has changed. I mean, a lot of this stuff has become automated now. For people looking into getting a financial, coach or advisor, kind of different things, but whoever is going to manage your money, if a lot of people are DIY, kind of like, oh, I do it myself, but if I want to have kind of a second opinion, I'll get a coach or something. I think a lot of people now, when they're just getting into it, they might start with what's called the robo advisors. They basically set up an account with different companies, and based on you kind of go through a self-assessment, kind of a multiple choice kind of thing, and they'll say, okay, based on your questions, you should put your money into this kind of portfolio, mildly aggressive, in this kind of these kind of companies and stocks, and then the computer basically does it for you. And so I think the education now should maybe not be so much about pen and paper. Where do I fill out my social security number on this form? If I add in lines 2 and 4, like you might remember taking that class. I think the education might be more now on, again, just knowing what you don't know. Like, what are the risks or what are the benefits and risks of taking a robo-advisor? How should you pick what kind of financial advisor to work with? Throw a stone in any direction, you'll have 20 financial advisors coming down your door asking for your money, saying they're all different. So I think it's more just kind of on, maybe not so much on the technical aspect of how to do it, but like what to look for in your next kind of, approach. If you are going to go for a robo-advisor, what are some of the, from a computer standpoint, how do those programs, work? What kind of companies are backing these, sort of companies? What are the options available to you as you come out of high school, to invest your money? Do you want to go with an independent person? Do you want to go with, the Wells Fargo, and then obviously yourself as a teacher, taking all those options and then putting it into a course or program to make it actually teachable.
Right, embedding it into the curriculum, absolutely.
Embedding it into the curriculum. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I want to touch on, and I was talking about this informally on my personal Facebook. I was doing some stories I do occasionally on content that doesn't necessarily go into Coping 20. And I was talking about how I think, personally, I think everybody should have as much of a process-oriented approach as possible, at least during this pandemic. A lot of people, are stuck on a results-oriented approach, which is, I want my business to be back the way it is right now. I want my life to be back the way it is yesterday. But a lot of what I'm hearing you say is, I think it sounds like you're more like me in the sense that your default is already more of a process-oriented approach. And it's not going to be that one financial move that you make that's going to make this huge astronomical difference. Every day is part of the journey, right? And this is something that I talked on the last episode of this show. So this is probably going to be the toughest question I'm going to ask you. It's a tough question, I'll be honest. What would you say to the person, right? If I had somebody come on the show right now and join us and they said, you know what, I love what I'm hearing. I really want to save money. I want to invest, but how am I going to even think about this when for me right now, it's a question of, can I put food on the table in a month? How does that person get started?
Yeah, that is a very hard question. And actually, to be frank, so that has been the hardest kind of thing that I had to work with, some of my clients and potential clients, this year is, it's like, hey, I got started as a personal financial coach. Let me help you with, things like, budgeting, save money, let the retirement plan come later. Let me just help you form a budget right now, work on that, make sure you maintain that credit score, it's a good time to refinance a student loan, that kind of stuff. And people are saying like, now it's just not a good time. Maybe I just bought a house and, I put all this money into it. Let's come back to this in 6 months. Or, hey, my grandparent is like in the hospital right now. I need to take care of that. Or, hey, I just lost my job 7 months ago and I can't think about 2 years, 20 to 30 years in the future. I'm thinking about 2 to 3 weeks. How am I going to, pay those bills? And that's actually kind of where I've been at. And the one thing that I think I'll say is that, and this is kind of a plug for myself, is so I don't charge fees to sit down with people because I just want them to have the education. So what I do is when I want to meet with people, I say like, look, I get it. You're kind of up creek without a paddle right here. And here I am offering to throw myself in that creek with you. So I'm like, let's see where you're at. Let's just kind of take stock of where you're at, whether it's a budget, how much debt are you paying down? Let's take stock, see where you're at, see where you want to go. Let's set up a plan just so that, let's say you don't come back to us for a year from now, but at least 12 months from now, you'll already be at square one. You won't be, 12 steps behind,
Right.
And so that's where I want people to be right now, is just to be prepared for when they're ready to be prepared.
I like that. That is the quote. That is the quote of the day. Be prepared to be prepared.
Yeah. Because I was just talking to a potential client, a good friend of mine this week, and she's like, "Hey, I have this 403b, which is kind of like it's kind of a pension for people who are either in nonprofits or like a state government kind of plan." And she's like, "I have this. I'd like to roll it over because my old employer is not paying into it. It's been kind of hard to get to it, but it's been kind of an ongoing process with her." And I kind of check in with them and I say like, "Hey, like." Let me, when you're ready to get to it, let me know when you're ready to help you. I'll set you up, just kind of my normal thing. And she's like, I don't think now's a good time. I think I'm gonna wait a few more months. And I just told her like, okay, like I respect that. I'm not here to knock down your door. Let me just tell you though that let's maybe sit down for a little bit, just take stock of where you're at, so that when you are ready to get started on your finances, then you're not thinking like, oh man, I should have started 6 months ago, or Same is true with buying a house. So my wife and I were thinking about being a homeowners the next year. I'm already year or two. I'm already trying to talk to realtors, loan officers, because I might not have the cash right now, but I know that in 2 years I will be. So I want to know what I don't know, so that when I'm ready, I'm ready.
That's excellent.
And I think to kind of tie that in what you were just talking about, being part of the process, is I genuinely want to give people financial wisdom. Go to TikTok and scroll through your, For You page, and you'll have people saying like, "Oh, buy this stock," or buy this. Here's how to be a day trader in 3 easy steps. Here's how to make $200,000 in real estate by, tomorrow. Like, no, you're not. You're promoting yourself as a person, to get money. And I want people to have financial wisdom, and so that means saying that let's maybe start with $50 in a plan, maybe right now, just kind of use a random number. And let's not put you on a get rich quick. Let's put you on a get rich eventually program.
I like that.
$50 now. And by the way, as you, my Mr. or Mrs. Client, I'm going to check in with you, once a year to do, kind of evaluation, see how your plans are going.
Right.
And during that time, we can say, hey, how's past year been for you? Did you get a new job? Did you have a raise? Anything good or bad happen to you we need to kind of, adjust for? And then so over a couple of years, you say, hey, yeah, you know what? My income did go up by 20%. I'm ready to start doing more investing. So you open up another account with a little bit higher limit, start putting more money into it. So you grow with your investments rather than trying to fit into a pair of pants that are too big, hoping that someday you'll
absolutely.
them.
And I think so many people are, well, it's just matter of fact that a lot of people fall into those traps, especially with the way the internet can be used in a negative sense. It's the same thing in other fields. If I say, you know what, you're going to go to the gym 2 hours a day strenuously and try to get ripped on 1,200 calories and just eat a clean diet, are you going to stick to that for more than a week? No or no. I mean, it's just one of those things. And people want that magic pill, quick fix solution. I actually did a parody on that on my Facebook story. I just made up a name, and there's a lot of those internet syndicate marketing where, do you want to fire your boss and work from home tomorrow? Just put in your email address and I'll send you my guide to get started today. And I would encourage everybody to let go of all that stuff and actually get in touch with somebody like Ryan. Ryan, we're just about out of time for today, but how can people get a hold of you and take the first steps to a brighter tomorrow right now?
So I'm not a hard person to find. You can find me on Facebook, Ryan Freer, 5 Rings Financial, or 5 Rings Freer. As I've kind of, it's funny how that kind of name, how my name kind of slid right in there with the company, kind of a meant to be kind of thing. But I am on Facebook. I'm on there. I think that's the best place to reach me. If you're not a Facebook person, if you're not on social media, Ryan at 5ringsfreer.com is a good way to get a hold of me. Those are kind of the two kind of best ways to do that. When you post this video today, I'll also kind of comment on there so that when people see it.
Sure. Yeah, we'll link it up. Absolutely, we will. 110%. Ryan, I just want to say thank you so much, brother. Thank you for coming on the show. Everybody else, please share this. Wear your mask. Don't share COVID. Share this. This is what you want to share, because I guarantee you 100% it's going to help a lot of people out there. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. This is Stephen Veach with guest Ryan Freer. We will see you next time on COPING-20.
Thanks, Stephen. We'll see you around.